Why did Zoop fucker make me laugh like? It's just a fucking... Yeah. In a little town, in a little kingdom, in a time when creatures that history books don't know existed side by side with people, there lived the Zoop. The Zoop was so like a man that if you seen his shadow, you may have thought he was one. Apart from that is him being 7 feet 11 tall, with a nose as long as a long piece of egg, and a chin curved upwards so that he could clean the very edge with his tongue. His fingers were on his feet, and his toes were on his hands. He had 11 of both, the extra finger and toe alternating to suit his situation and his mood. The oddest thing you would immediately notice would be the horrible rough grey hair that covered his body, except for his digestive outlets, which were kept clear for sanitation reasons. He wore no shirt or pants, but adorned his penis with foil attached with a red bow. Although odd, this was never sexually threatening, as its inner layers concealed a digital machine that would play a medley of panpipe favourites. He was played in major films by a variety of well-established comic actors. The Zoop lived in a rubber sphere that was exactly his size and height. It sat at the end of a long orange plant that grew up 5 inches and then horizontally for 17 miles. The Zoop had attached the sphere to the plant by means of supernatural plaster. If you went near the plant, it spat fire at you, and so the Zoop lived a lonely life that suited him well. Now from this you would think that the Zoop and children would be natural friends, but nothing could be further from the truth, apart from milk being good for you. But they had no milk, just green liquid kids drank at school that stank of sour toes. It was called gup. So if you put yourself in the time of the Zoop, it would be fair to say that vis-a-vis children and the Zoop being natural friends, nothing could be further from the truth, apart from gup being good for you. The Zoop hated children. Meeting a child to him was like drinking gup that had been left for dogs to lick for a week. Except there were no dogs, just animals that looked very much like dogs, who had IQs of exactly 180, meaning they had no egos and therefore barked instead of communicating their individuality. So if you were in this land, you may well have thought these were dogs, apart from the fact that their faces were made of Gustav Klimt posters. The time that the Zoop hated most was Christmas. Christ was born in Bethlehem many years before in this land too, but Christ was a form of social reform, and Bethlehem was a word that when translated loosely meant troubled political times. Children would sing Christmas carols, and the Zoop hated Christmas carols, mainly because in this land they involved chanting the word Zoop fucker in a variety of high-pitched squeals. At Christmas, the Zoop would sneak into their homes and remove every one of their gifts from under the tree. He had done this for many years, but in the last few years he noticed something dramatically different. The gifts were a long way from being nice things anymore. Instead of big long slides with happiness bags at the bottom, people were leaving gup. And not any old gup either. This was gup from a land that made gup to clean their noses. Then one day the Zoop heard one of the people say that they had not yet bought some Christmas shit for the Zoop, and that if they didn't get it soon, bad luck would fall on. The Zoop was so angry at this ironic twist that he burnt his own house down and stabbed his arm. He spent the year planning something so wicked that Christmas would forever be known as the time the Zoop fucked things up. It was a nasty plan too. He intended to confront 2 children with the notion that underneath our exteriors we're all the same, and that his bitterness was the result of our fear of outsiders. He intended to sneak into their house and challenge them with an allegory about racial differences, or maybe even attitudes towards disability. In this land there lived 2 children, Jude and Mood, who even by children's standards were annoying. They had a simplistic stupidity that was mistaken often for innocence. Even more unusually, they were now in the late 20s. One of their years is equal to 0.756 of ours, but even with this calculation, they were old children. This was due to everyone being officially a child until interest in the opposite sex had replaced an interest in collecting playing cards. They were both highly sexed children, but their desire for collecting cards was so massive that authorities had barely noticed. So the Zoop snuck into their house very late on Christmas Eve and stood over them. When the children seemed fast asleep, he started to play the panpipes. Jude and Mood woke with a start. "Fuck you, Zoop," they sang. The Zoop mistakenly thought this was a desire to sexually please him. "My God," he proclaimed, "if they're willing to sing a song in my honour, maybe we're all the same beyond our physical form." Then a strange thing happened. Mood and Jude suddenly started growing taller. Lots of grey hair started to grow all over their bodies. "By all things minor and social reform like," he declared, "it's true." The Zoop ran jumping and skipping from the house and went back to the embers that were once his fear. He took out all the surviving bits of presents that he had stolen and sold them to a man with only 10 toes. "There you go, poor suffering imbecile," he shouted. "Have a happy Christmas." From that day on, Christmas was known as a time when you could patronise anyone and not feel guilty about the social and economic climate that caused their plight. Apart from the wretched boot people who were kept as slaves so no one else had to work over that period.